There are this section of white people who don't want to have anything to do with black people at all.
They always got to come back down the mountain, typically with tools, and cause havoc on the people who are doing better than them elsewhere.
Stay up in the Ozarks because y'all got the complexion for that cold-ass weather.
I'm perplexed because we all know we're a bunch of sheep. The system was able to hoard a bunch of black people into things called projects.
Nothing has really changed except the time. Thinking about this other story about how there are this section of white people who don't want to have anything to do with black people at all, right? They want to leave us out of their business completely, not just us, any LGBTQIA, any Jews, any non-white, non-Christian person is not permitted to live in a certain town. They created a whites-only town. So this is like a step beyond sundown, I guess. So, the news isn't really talking about this. I think the town's been around for years. The reason it's becoming news again is because this town is now thinking they're going to spread to another state. They were in the Ozark Mountains, right? And now they want to go, I think, to Missouri. So, there's some talk about whether or not they should spread and what does it mean if it's legal. And just to give you guys some context, the way they're doing it is because it is illegal to discriminate on housing. What they're doing is they're selling a private membership to a club that owns the land. And because you are a member of the club, they're not selling you housing, they're selling you access to the grounds of the club, which can discriminate based on whatever they want to discriminate on. It's a very gray area that they're working in right now. The law isn't very specific in how they're doing it. So it's really very, very interesting. My question to you all is, just speaking for the culture, should we be inspired or should we be incensed? Is this something to for us to go, man, we should have our own cities? Or should we be like, look at that. They done burned down Black Wall Street. Now they're going to go get their own thing. What y'all think?
I love that for them. I do. I would love it for us too. If I felt like it was something that we could really manage and pull off, I would definitely be in support and I'd be actively working towards making it happen. I think the difference is that when white people choose to segregate, they always got to come back down the mountain, typically with tools and hoods in hand, and cause havoc on the people who are doing better than them elsewhere. Segregation does nothing but highlight what we could succeed at when we're at our best. And that in turn makes them jealous. And then their jealousy causes rage. And then they want to kill us all over again. So, yeah, you guys want to be up on a mountain in the Ozarks. And I see the threat of it reaching elsewhere because what they're doing is actually passing out Klan flyers and then recruiting people and then deciding to move into these settlements. So we know the premise of which you're moving for, right? Segregation under racial terms. Martin Luther King said at the very end of his life that he hated the fact that he ushered his people into a burning house. And so he knew back then that even integrating was going to be or had become so damaging to Black Americans that it was problematic. But do I think the solution is for them to move in the mountains and then what? I think it's a novel idea for them, but they're not going to really be successful at that here in the States either.
So I would say this, I actually support this. You know why I support it? I support it because there's already sundown towns that already exist. This is just an extension of those sundown towns that already exist. And so for them to act like this is something new and this is novel, it's not. We've been dealing with this and living with this for many, many moons now. And the difference is, as Tia pointed out, hopefully you don't feel the need to come down and burn, flood, destroyed by infrastructure, i.e. running highways through, or through other mechanisms such as bombing, Black neighborhoods, Black towns and whatnot, if we decide to do the same. Now, I will acknowledge that it may be more difficult for us to do the same simply because we don't necessarily have, as Tia pointed out, the infrastructure in place. But I don't necessarily think it's that we don't have the infrastructure in place. I think it's we don't have the wherewithal. We don't have the motivation. We don't have the drive to do so in some places, right? There's this one project I think it was in Houston. His name was Chris something. And he had this whole by the block, right? Same with Nipsey Hussle, right? By the block. But this Chris guy, I think it was Chris Senegal, if I recall correctly, but he was trying to get a entire community of just Black businesses, Black everything, hospitals, banks, everything. And he was looking for investors. And he was complaining about how it was really hard for him to get investors to invest in this ideal, because at the end of the day, we've actually divested from our own community, whether we know or acknowledge it or not. There's too many of us who's willing to assimilate at the cost of the crumbs at the table. And I will say that I find it so fascinating because they did do it under a new flag, i.e., oh, this is our preference. Yeah. What? This is our preference. This is privacy. What? And I'm like, okay, go ahead. It's just racism in disguise. We got you. It's okay. Some people have made being racist okay in 2025. We're not going to name who those people are because I'm pretty sure we know who those people are. And so it's okay. Go ahead and put your hood on. Go ahead and put on a certain color hat. Go ahead and bring out the little tiki torches because I would rather see you than not know you coming. So I see you. I know you coming. And I appreciate knowing you coming. And I agree that MLK, when he said he integrated us into a burning house, this is why I honestly believe he was assassinated, because he started to realize the errors his ways. Because guess what? We don't have the same amount of black hospitals, black banks, black credit unions, black schools. Although we still got the HBCU, and as a proud HBCU grad, whoop, whoop, JSU, I appreciate the HBCUs that continue to exist. But let's not lie or acknowledge the fact that they're still trying to phase those HBCUs out. And so I say congratulations to you two, as in you two folks at the settlement who came up with this idea of turning to a preference and saying, yes, it's our preference. And then when we go with our preference, please don't let your jealousy and envy, because that's what this has always been about. Don't let that get your knickers in a bunch and you come and flood our communities and you come and do harm to our communities. Matter of fact, stay up in the Ozarks because y'all got the complexion for that cold ass weather. Stay up there. I support it.
So I'm a bit confused, right? Because on the one hand, we don't think we have the wherewithal anymore like we used to in the past. On the other hand, we're scared of the same thing that happened in the past. Like, so for example, if it's like, okay, well, we're not quite the same stock of black people we may have been once upon a time, right? Okay. But then at the same time, we're afraid of the same outcome at the same time. Because if we do that, then they're going to come and burn down our thing like Oklahoma Tulsa. Like they did. I'm kind of confused. Yeah. Right. Because I feel like, right, the same way that I think there's a credible argument that obviously we can't go back. We can only deal with whether or not this idea makes sense today, right? And I think if we do that, then I think the argument that they're going to automatically come for us and all that, I don't know that. That happened back then at a time where, there wasn't a bunch of TV, there wasn't a bunch of internet, there wasn't a bunch of Islam, like in terms of like people, you hear about people getting turned over the internet to become an Islamic terror. Like, wow, that didn't happen back then, right? So what I'm saying is like back then, I get how people can be in proximity and see a thing and envy it, right? But is that going to happen today? Is that enough of a reason to why we should not aspire to do a thing, right? That's number one. Number two, like, I'm perplexed because we all know we're a bunch of sheep, right? The system was able to hoard a bunch of black people into things called projects. Because you can say that, come on, man. So you mean to tell me that we couldn't really socially engineer things differently if we had the will? Because I don't even think it's a question of wherewithal, to be honest with you. There's a bunch of different developers. There's people who got money. We just don't got the will to do it. You know what I'm saying? There's enough smart black people who are scientists and builders. Like, if we really wanted to go out there and create our own, we could. We have enough. We don't need everybody. You only really need about 10, 15, 20% of the people to really be productive and the rest of them to just not fuck the shit up too terribly. You know what I'm saying? So I think we got the wherewithal. I just don't think we got the will. Why? Because, yes, we have assimilated. It's very hard to draw distinctions because, like, I might feel comfortable over here with these diverse group of people that I might feel comfortable over here with just my folk. Because socioeconomically, some of us have also progressed in life, right? And then we got to deal with the realities of being in certain neighborhoods. Y'all ever wonder why it's only white and maybe white gay people that can gentrify a neighborhood? You ever think about that? Because if a rich black person or if a successful black person moved into that same black neighborhood, could they gentrify it? Is it because of the rich, or is it because of the white person or the gay white person, or is it because of the other black people in the neighborhood who treat them differently when they move into these neighborhoods? Or the police who respond differently when they do, right? Like, so I think there's a myriad of complexities when we talk about the challenges that we face today because some of us just don't have the will or we don't care in regards to doing what's best for us. But I don't think it's a question of whether we can. And so that just leads me to the next question, which is this something that maybe should inspire us? I mean, I don't know. I find it interesting that we're in a state where people have the ability, the wherewithal, we're pro-black, but yet we don't want to think about putting towns together that reflect us, our cultures, our values, make sure that the school systems, I mean, you hear about people all the time having schools, charter schools or whatever, because they want to take their own education in their kid. Why shouldn't we? Like, I get our repugnance towards them doing it because of the history, but before I say they should do it, I got to ask, should I want to do this? Should I reserve the right to do this? Right? As long as I'm not hurting anyone in America, am I allowed to congregate amongst people that look like me, that reflect my values? Like, at what point in time is that okay before it becomes a problem? Because listen, I'm not going to Arkansas anytime soon, right? They picked the right place because it's probably not niggas over there anyway. You know what I'm saying? So who are they really hurting for real? Now, if he was in Atlanta, it'd be a whole different story. Maybe that's why it's not in Atlanta, right? Because maybe it just wouldn't work, right? But in certain places and nuggets, maybe it would. And maybe those people should have the right to move over there and do what the fuck it is they're doing, as long as they're not like fucking with other people, as long as they're not, keep taking people's rights away, et cetera, et cetera. So I do get the propensity for us to just be like, oh my God, this is crazy, but fuck them. You know what I'm saying? I ain't know about them anyway. I'm thinking like, shit, I had an idea like this. Like, we should have communities that care about us and then we teach them stuff. And so I don't know. I get that. I think with Jay's question is a poignant one, because I do think that we can be, intrigued or outraged by it. But honestly, I think maybe it's time that we find a little inspiration in it. A little bit, a lot of it. You know what I'm saying? But that's just me. Go ahead.
I think what we take for granted is that white people have the ability in the United States and the resources to be able to go and open their own settlement and finance it. When we decided to integrate in America, we gave up our schools. We gave up our businesses. They didn't come into our shit and say, come to these black schools and we're going to mix up. No, we went into their shit. And then we were forced to take what they gave us, which has rendered us extremely undereducated and under-resourced and marginalized. So when you talk about the ability and the wherewithal to do something, we have to have access. This would put us in that same position. Let's take a loan out from the bank, from the man, to go and live somewhere. And then when they decide they want their property, they land back, I defaulted, I couldn't pay, whatever happens, they can rip it from up under me. And that is a part of the problem. I use a theory in some of my clinical work, and it's basically saying that there had to be a point when Harriet Tubman was coming back down south after she had been north a number of times, that she realized that, hey, hooty hoo, we going, we leaving at 6, that everybody wasn't interested in going north, that some people were very content with the life they were living because that's all they ever knew, and they weren't interested in the risk that it took to get something and have something better. There was a percentage of us that did, but it was a small number, way less than what we think that was left on the plantations, right? So yes, there's still a small number of us that can look upward and see something great about possibly doing something like this, but we have been rendered, and I don't even use the word assimilated, because that means you had a choice in choosing to partake in someone's cultural values and norms and accepting them as your own or utilizing them as your own. We didn't have that because we came here without culture. We didn't have a choice but to pick up the things from them that we did, because we didn't have anything of our own to reference. And so when I think about this, it's like, it's great. It's a novel idea, but not only could we would have difficulty doing it on our own. I'm not saying it's impossible. We would have difficulty because the buy-in factor, but we'd also have to borrow money from Mr. Johnny. And I think that would put us right back in the same hole that we were in before we even considered this an option.
I do believe there are problems. So first, you guys made a lot of good points. I think that as a child who grew up in Mississippi in a very segregated, in a school that was only integrated when my oldest brother went there, like that was the first year integrated. I think he graduated like 87 or something. So, he was feeling like, let's say it probably didn't, the school that I graduated from probably did not integrate until, let's say 1984. Right, 1985, 1984, something like that. So, I've experienced racism in its truest face. Okay, and I've learned very quickly the worst place to be is a place where people don't want you. You're not gonna have a good time, even if you can define and defend your right to be there. There's something about being around folk who don't want you there. It just kills your vibe. So I'm fine if they want to have a little dusty community out somewhere. I'm cool with that. I think it's great because I would much rather know where the people who hate me are so I can move around them than for people to be in my face and hate me and pretend like they cool and they want to be in the same city as me. No, go do something else. That's cool. Because truth be told, when Black people had a problem with separate but equal, our issue was not the separate. We were good with separate. Our problem was we were paying the same taxes, sometimes even more, but we weren't getting the equal when it came to funding to our schools. So then we were like, well, shoot, let's go to your school then. So your school got all the money. But then what happened then was they started white flight. Now they're moving out of the schools and defunding the schools as they move. They're still doing it now with charter programs. It's still happening. Nothing has really changed except the time. And so what we need right now is we do need a Black push. We do need a response. And we don't need a response that gets back at them for what they're doing. We need a response that goes, oh, cool. That's what the game has evolved to? Play on, player, game on. Can we do it? Yes, we can do it, Tia. No, can we move the whole collective of Black people? No. That's why Black people get tired of talking about Black people moving forward. Because every time you bring it up, one Black person goes, and it ain't got to be Uncle Ruckus. One Black person goes, it'll never happen, man. Black people never get on one page. We always this, we always that, we always. And you know what? If you're looking monolithically, maybe it's true. But I'm saying if you want to move a flock, you don't grab all the birds. You just take the one in front and direct its path. And the ones that follow, you move a flock by moving individuals. We're going to move the collective of the Black consciousness, not by moving as a unit, not because one Black man stands up with a vision and all Black people listen. It's not going to happen. But if we can just lock down our families and our households, if we can start there, being an enterprise to ourselves and our household. I'm working on a plan. I'm going to release it in the next 12 months. Every family should be able to make themselves self-sufficient. When a family becomes a income generating self-sufficient entity, it can now work with other families. And then we can begin to create our community and our infrastructure and our own commerce like we used to have. But we can't do that until we get our own. As long as we're begging somebody else to give to us, as long as we're consumers and not producers, we will always be at the mercy of the person who is producing. And whatever you got, start there with your family. So it's doable, y'all. It's doable. I personally say, fine, go make your city, right? We're going to do ours better. We never, ever needed to be mixed in with anybody. We welcomed it. We did it in Europe with the Moors. We did it all over this globe. We mix it. We're like, oh, we got some knowledge. Hey, let's share with you. But y'all don't want to bang with us? Cool. Because we was here before all, we'll be here after all. First of all, servants of all, we will definitely transcend all. I heard it from somebody. My point is, don't get your panties in a bunch, folks. It's just time to get about our job, right? I know it feels heavy moving the people. You don't move a whole ocean. You move the drops, right? So we are going to get it, and we're going to get on track. And the way to do it is to stop being pushed in the margins. We have to build the equal for ourselves, piece by piece, if it takes that. And then we can build something that we can pass on to future generations, and we can then begin to rebuild Black excellence the way it was always intended.
So I was going to say that, it's actually interesting because there actually is a Black family. When you talked about Black families, it triggered a memory of something that I read about a family I believe it was in Freedom, Georgia, where they actually had 19 Black families come together. It could have been 20, but I think it was 19 Black families come together, purchase like 100 acres of land for the purpose of creating a safe haven for Black people, right? And so now, though, it'll say like people of color, but originally it was for Black people. And it was all about building the infrastructure and putting it like through using co-ops, right? And so so not only co-ops, but like co-ops for food supply, co-op for utilities, education, even banking. And there are Black banks, and it's just not a lot. They're very far and few in between that we could get loans from for the purpose of doing this. And so, but using the Freedom Georgia model, which I think was, like I said, 2020, I believe it was, is a possibility. And there are places that are coming along those, like even using the USDA, although with the grants now being put on hold, but there also was USDA farm grants that you can use, particularly as first-time home buyers, to purchase land for the purpose of building a house and so forth. And so there are resources out there. The one thing that Black communities have a tendency when we become along these mind frame of self-sufficiency, we have a tendency to be surveilled by the government. We have a tendency to have some folks who come in to try to dissuade, disrupt, and corrupt what's currently taking place. And I think that's something that has to be accounted for when we move forward. there's another landowner in Texas, I believe, who talked about how he should have moved silently, because the minute he started talking about what he was doing, that's when he started getting problems with getting permits. That's when he started getting problems with, like, all of a sudden there was always some type of issue and so forth on his property that he had already purchased. And so that's another thing. Maybe there's a time where we should move silently when we're doing things like that. And so since we are a solution oriented podcast, I think there's a possibility in this. It's just a matter of, one, starting co-ops. Like, we can do it locally. We can start co-ops, growing our own food, doing bartering exchanges and stuff like that. There are small things that we can take within our own community to start this process if this is truly where we're going to go and we want to go. And to be honest, we should go. There should be some self-sufficiency in regards to that community vibe, that community safe haven.
So no, I wanted to push back on this paranoia. Okay, I get it. There are people doing some of this. You don't hear about them. They're just doing it within their small communities, right? So we can't pretend like some of this is already happening. A friend of mine, he had a whole community of people who were having their kids in charter school. They decided to do a private situation. Like, there are people who are tapping into some of this. We just don't hear about them, which brings me to the other point too. So I feel like when we say stuff like, oh, as soon as we tell other people, I feel like those are fear tactics a little bit. Low key, like, if you're just legit, you have momentum behind you. Yes, are there going to be haters out there? Absolutely. But to the level of which it seems like this all boogeyman is going to always, I get that that does happen, but I just don't think the boogeyman is as much of a problem as we make it seem to be. And frankly, I'd rather face the boogeyman at some point than just be fearful of even doing anything so I don't have to face him. I want to face that motherfucker if he exists then. And let me conquer that shit too. Right? So I just feel like we got to have the attitude of, we going to push through whatever thing we got to push through to make it happen. But that's not the problem. It goes back to the whole will thing. I'm going to tell you why. We talk about, oh, we got to get money from the white man. Shit, if the loan terms make sense, yeah, I'm going to get the loan. I got a loan for my house, I got a loan for my car. So the fuck what? Right? If you do it correctly, you won't have to have a loan forever. There are some loans you can pay off with no prepayment penalty, right? So there's ways that you could use the system, even if the system isn't to your advantage, but some of it is set up in such a way that it has to be agnostic enough to allow you to participate, right? So that means you can get a loan to start up a business, or get up a loan to start a community, then fuck it, make it do what it do. Because the other part is, how much trillions of dollars do we spend on bullshit per annum? And then we claim we ain't got it. It ain't like we ain't got it. No, we do be having it. It's just that we be quick to give it up. Like, if niggas just say, hey, you know what? That's what, 50 million black people? If 50 million black people say, for every black person, I'm going to give $1 per month towards some black people liberation cause or whatever, start doing the math. It don't even take a lot, for real, for real. But here's the problem, because, yeah, I disagree with you. I do think people are doing it individually, but no, we do need somebody to follow, because we're followers. You know what I'm saying? It has to be like a movement to where, like, people can get inspired. Like, Barack Obama, to me, his presidency was the last time I saw a movement that galvanized a group of people for any sustained period of time. Now, whether or not people love what he did with it or not, but if you lived through that experience, it was a movement afoot. Even Bernie had like little traces of it when he was running up for presidency, right? So it's not like you can't build momentum around a cause. It just takes a right mixture of things. If the T app can pop off to the fucking point that we're talking about, you mean to tell me we can't figure out the right mixture of pop culture, the right mixture of personalities, the right mixture of movement to get people afoot? It doesn't take everybody, y'all. It don't. It only takes a small group of people to make a concerted effort who knows how to tap in to social media and marketing to get the rest of the sheep to rock the fuck out. How many people was out here, A minor, off of a fucking Drake beat? Come on, man. That's the type of fucking influence we have. And Kendrick was riding that shit out for a fucking 6 to 8 months. The West Coast was rejuvenated off of a rap beef. You know what I'm saying? So listen what they tell me, okay? My point is that I think if we understand culture enough, we do understand that if they're using the tools to influence us, to get us to move in a certain type of way, why can't we use those tools too? Right? So it's just like, we always look at things like, oh my God, they're going to do all these things, but the same things they can use against us, we can low-key probably use to our favor if we just had the will to figure it the fuck out. You know what I'm saying? You mentioned Harriet. How many Harriets were there? There weren't that many, sis. Right? But they didn't stop her from still doing her fucking thug thizzle. And all the people who was willing to rock out with her. Right? So I'm just saying, like, I get it. When we hear about segregation, we think about it from the past. But if we at the same time think about the ways that integration was a problem, then why would we not consider it today? It's possibly not integration, but just how we choose to move, because we should have more resources, or we don't. We should have more information, or we don't. We should have more will, or we don't, man. Like, we got to stop bullshit. We either want to make it happen or not make it happen, y'all. I'm feeling like we don't really want to make it happen for real. You know what I mean? But just like the rest of this conversation, does anybody else have anything else on here? All the pro-segregation people raise their hands. Black fist. Yeah. Hey, in principle or in idea, not in practice.